Nintendo releases firmware 5.0.1. What does it do? Nintendo also comments on Switch's bricking from using certain third-party docks after the 5.0 update. Sea of Thieves gets a massive update to the game with a really weird inclusion, and Duke Nukem's getting a movie. And for some reason, John Cena's starring in it. All that and more on the March 28th edition of RGT News. Let's go!
Hey, RGT85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards! So yes, the Nintendo Switch got a new firmware update, 5.0.1. What does it do? Nothing really. If you're looking for some added stability to your Nintendo Switch system though, this is the update for you, as the main feature is added system stability. Now, one interesting thing is there is some sort of Joy-Con update included with this patch as well. There have been no full patch notes that I have seen online, but your Joy-Cons do update. Now, more than likely, this has to do with Nintendo Labo coming out at the end of April. They obviously want the Joy-Cons to be working to their full potential because the Labo system really allows for some interesting things with these Joy-Cons, like the little walking stick man and things of that nature. So while it's not a huge update that really does anything worthwhile, it is interesting to see if there's any sort of other things that it does that we find out further down the road. Sea of Thieves has gotten a pretty sizable update in terms of graphics and performance. Now, I reviewed Sea of Thieves on the channel. I wasn't a huge fan of the game. I felt that it was a bit too barren in the sea area, but it looks like they are going to be improving this game as time goes along. Of course, on the last episode of RGT News, we talked about a 5 to 10 year plan for Sea of Thieves. This new Sea of Thieves patch pretty much just increases graphics. It adds some additional textures on different flora and fauna in the environment. It reduces some of the screen tearing that you see when you're on the ships, and that's pretty much all it does. But here's the weird thing about this patch. In order to use this patch, you actually have to re-download the entire game. And while it's not a huge game, I believe it came in around 9 gigs, that's pretty weird that you have to reinstall the entire game instead of just putting it on top of the original game. I've been hearing that there's been some issues with users who got the game through Game Pass that are trying to update to the latest version of the game. Now, it seems like they are working on that. Rare has announced that they are fixing things on that end, but it's an interesting thing. As far as content updates go, we are still a bit of a ways away. So while I really think the graphics in the game were fine though, that wasn't really an issue to me. It was more so the lack of content. So hopefully they sort of shift focus away from the graphics. The graphics look good enough. Just give me some more stuff to do in Sea of Thieves. After the Nintendo Switch 5.0 firmware update, many people who were using third-party docks, especially the Nyko third-party dock, found out something very, very scary. Their Nintendo Switch was bricked. It was no longer working. Even Spawnwave had one of these Nyko docks and it completely bricked his Nintendo Switch, rendering it useless. Well, Nintendo has commented on the situation today, basically saying the following. Nintendo recommends that Switch owners only buy officially licensed Switch products. Unlicensed products and accessories do not undergo Nintendo's testing and evaluation process. They may not work with our game systems, and they could have compatibility issues with certain games, the system itself, and other licensed accessories and peripherals. Basically saying, if you didn't buy a Nintendo Switch dock, unfortunately, there's nothing they can do. Now, Nyko has been trying to work on a fix for this, but unfortunately, there are a lot of brick Switches out there, and since Nintendo does not offer any cloud saves for the Nintendo Switch, all your saves are gone, and all of that hard work that you put into Breath of the Wild and Xenoblade 2 is gone. So it's really an unfortunate situation. Obviously, I don't think Nintendo went out with the intention of bricking Switches via the docks, with the third-party docks. That wasn't the intent of the patch. The intent of the patch, of course, was to thwart hackers and update the system's firmware. But it's very interesting to see the repercussions of this. So I guess stick with the Nintendo docks for now. I only have one dock because I feel that the docks are way too expensive, but maybe now we see why they're so expensive. The Wario Land series is a tried and true series with lots of entries. It was pretty popular on the Game Boy, the Virtual Boy had one, and Wario Land was a really fun franchise. It was sort of a unique spin-off on the Mario Land or Mario Brothers games that we have all known and loved. Well, Nintendo has recently renewed the patent on Wario Land, so could we be seeing something in the Wario Land universe? I think you have a good potential for it. That's definitely a franchise that I think would do well on the Nintendo Switch, and it's a franchise that isn't really catered into anything. It's not really pigeonholed into a certain type of game, so you could actually do a lot with the Wario Land game. Obviously, Wario is a bit of an evil character, very hungry for money and gold and riches and things like that, and I think you could do a really interesting style of game with the WarioWare license. Wario himself is a fantastic character. There's lots of things you could do, so I'm excited to see the potential of a Wario Land game. Could we see a Wario Land game announced for the Nintendo Switch at E3? Honestly, I hope so, but we'll just have to wait and see. It is interesting to see this patent renewed, though. Have you heard of Luminous Productions before? Probably not, but you will be hearing about them more in the future, as this is a brand new AAA studio from Square Enix. The person heading Luminous Productions is Mr. Tabata, who was the creative director and producer of Final Fantasy 15, which of course was an interesting take on the Final Fantasy universe. A bit of a decisive feeling in that game, but a lot of people really loved it, and of course the art style of the game was pretty unique in how they incorporated real-world things into fantasy elements. This is a AAA studio being lined up by Square Enix that's looking to bring out AAA games. Now, they haven't announced anything beyond just that the studio exists, but it looks like during the midsummer we may start seeing some projects announced, an official announcement on what the studio is going to be doing and what sort of platforms they're going to be working on. So the more companies from Square Enix within Square Enix, the better, in my opinion. That really lends ways to new games, new classic RPGs, or even reviving franchises. So I'm excited to see what they bring to the table. If they're just going to be working on newer projects, maybe working on some retro reprisals and bringing them back into the spotlight, the possibilities are endless with this. So it's a good thing, in my opinion. If you're a 90s gamer, you know one person is here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and he's probably all out of bubblegum, and that is Duke Nukem. Now, Duke Nukem was a pioneer in the first-person genre. He was filled with attitude and lots of one-liners, and a really interesting game. It definitely hasn't held up to today's standards. It's definitely a game you probably couldn't release in 2018 because everyone and their mother would be offended by it, but the Duke Nukem franchise does hold a special place in a lot of retro gamers' hearts. It originally was a 2D franchise that really got its claim to fame when it moved to the 3D area, and you had all these monsters and pig cops and strippers. Just a really fun, tongue-in-cheek first-person shooter. Well, although Duke Nukem Forever was the last released game for the Duke Nukem franchise that was in development hell, and when it finally came out, it honestly kind of sucked. Duke Nukem's getting a movie, and I don't really know why Duke Nukem's getting a movie. You know, you see all these weird random video game movies popping up, things like Rampage with The Rock, and it looks like they're not steering too far from the video game and wrestler connection, as the person that has been chosen to play Duke Nukem is yes, John Cena will be playing Duke Nukem. Now, honestly, I'm okay with this. I think he kind of looks like Duke Nukem. If you bleach his hair blonde and he grows it out a little bit and spikes it up, it would be a pretty decent fit. But is he going to do all those quirky one-liners and do all that adult material that Duke Nukem was known for? Is the script even going to follow anything like the video games? And more importantly, why are we working on a Duke Nukem movie now? Like, this would have been something cool maybe in the 90s, the early 2000s, when people actually were thinking about Duke Nukem. Who's thinking about Duke Nukem in the year 2018? Not many people. So it'll be interesting to see if this movie comes to fruition, but John Cena is the main target. John Cena is being written as Duke Nukem right now, so I don't know. The movie's gonna suck probably, but I'm still interested to check it out. And that is going to do it for the Wednesday, March 28th episode of RGT News. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of everything. What you think of Square Enix starting Luminous Productions. What would you like to see from this company? Would Wario Land possibly be at E3 this year? Was that a good franchise for Nintendo to revive? I honestly feel it is, like I said. And why are they doing a Duke Nukem movie in 2018 when it probably won't come out till 2019, 2020? Who cares about Duke Nukem anymore? Thank you guys for checking out this video. As always, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. This show premieres on Wednesdays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern sharp, so make sure you guys tune into that and the notifications are on so you get reminded just in case you forget. And of course, if you really enjoyed the show, make sure you check out the links in the description box down below. We've got Patreon, T-Search, social media, all sorts of ways to stay up to date in the world of RGT85. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.